In the previous part of this Composite Vilgax series, I talked about the versions of Vilgax that we saw in Ultimate Alien. So in this video, I'll be talking about the versions of Vilgax we saw in Omniverse. There are less versions of Vilgax to cover, with there only being Cyborg Vilgax and Malgax, since I covered the Vilgax that we saw in the 1700s in my first video. As well as this, I covered Cyborg Vilgax already in the first video too, so I don't have much to add on with Omniverse Vilgax, so the only Vilgax I really have much to talk about is Malgax, unfortunately. But I guess that helps me since I only have a couple days left to make and upload both these videos, both this video and the part 5 video, which I'll be talking about the reboot versions of Vilgax. I'd also like to try and make a 6th part if I have time, but I highly doubt I'll be able to do that, so let's just stop wasting time and get straight into the video. The first version of Vilgax I want to be talking about is Cyborg Vilgax. We can assume Cyborg Vilgax in Omniverse is as strong as Cyborg Vilgax in the classic series, considering Vilgax at the end of Ultimate Alien had his powers stolen along with the powers stolen from Dagon by Ben wielding Ascalon. Vilgax in Omniverse still has the spikes sticking out of his arms and shoulders, which allows him to enhance his muscles, but as well as this, he has them in his legs, hands and back as well. Unfortunately, we never see Vilgax bulk up in Omniverse like he did in Classic, but he should be able to do it, and since he has these spikes pins in other places rather than solely his arms, theoretically he should be able to become more powerful than Vilgax in the original series. Maybe he'd look something like this if he buffed up. As for the additionals that Omniverse Vilgax has, he has an energy sword that he wields. This is the same sword that he wielded 300 years ago in the past, and again, I already covered this in the first Composite Vilgax video, so I recommend checking that out. Vilgax can somehow fire off energy from his hands. We see him do this in And Then There Were None, but we only see him do this one time and it was never really explained. And then finally, Cyborg Vilgax has levitation, but only through his machines. We see him use something with a similar appearance to one of his UFO-looking drones that we saw in the original series, but as a platform to stand on and fly around on. And this was in Friedlemania. Well, I forgot about Vilgax's pets. Before writing the script, I completely forgot they existed. And by the way, these are not Lucubras, somehow. Somehow they're not Lucubras. Even though I swear they are. These are just the species that originates on Vilgaxia. Though my headcanon is that Dagon planted them there for some reason. Or maybe it's the ancestor to Vilgaxia. So the species on Vilgaxia, I'm not sure whether that makes sense or not, but it's really the only explanation I have for the squid pets having such a similar design to the Lucubra. And it's also some nice, cool lore, and since they're all squid creatures, if these squid things aren't Lucubra, then their best showcase of power is destroying cars, also to mention that there's 20 of them. If these things are Lucubra, then they all have mind control, immunity to radiation, and more. I talk more on Lucubra in my previous video, so I recommend watching that as well. Well, on to the main attraction, that being Malgax. Malgax is Vilgax while wearing the Malware armor, and the Malware armor is a variation of the Retaliator armor that we saw in Destroy All Aliens. However, the difference between the Retaliator armor and the Malware armor is that the Retaliator armor is just that, armor, whereas the Malware armor fuses with the user. Malgax has all the abilities of Cyborg Vilgax plus all the abilities of Malware. Since I already talked about Cyborg Vilgax's abilities, I'll talk about Malware's. Malware, rather than enhancing technology like other mechamorphs do, he absorbs them into himself, thus upgrading himself. Notable tech that Malware has absorbed prior to his death was Rook's prototool, a Galvan jetpack, a plumber rifle, and a tachyon cannon. Rook's prototool has a crazy amount of uses. You can use it as a blaster, a bow, a netcaster, a missile launcher, a sword, a grapple, a shackle launcher, an auto turret, a flashlight, a tonfa, a taser, a fishing rod, a laser, a hose, a vacuum, a harpoon gun, a staff, an energy shield projector, a zipline hook, and an electric rope launcher, just to name the most useful abilities. As well as this, there's and a thermal scope. It's unfortunate that we never saw Malware or Malgax use any of the abilities from the prototool other than the obvious ability, which was the blaster, which only Malware used once absorbing the prototool, and then it was never used again. It would have been cool for either of them to have used the energy shields, energy shackles, vacuum, or harpoon gun the prototool offers. But it is what it is. As for the tachyon cannon, when it's fired at something, it disrupts every individual cell with a matching DNA in a certain radius and takes the target apart on a subcellular level. So as stated in the episode Male Factor, which is the tachyon cannon's first appearance, if a tachyon cannon was fired at a human, it would kill every human being within a 100-mile radius. That is fucked. On to Mello's other abilities that aren't to do with the tech that he absorbed. Malware was shown to be able to extract aliens out of the Omnitrix if the wielder was in said alien form. This way did some feedback, so theoretically Vilgax could do the same thing to any of Ben's alien forms, like Atomics, Vampire, Waybig. Maybe he could do it to Alien X. Malware has body alteration, meaning he can grow an extra arm out of his back, or a third leg, for example. He can also stretch his limbs, meaning he could reach out for technology that maybe isn't in his grasp, normally. Malware is capable of regeneration on a subcellular level, considering malware was blown to bits by the tachyon cannon before absorbing it, yet he just regenerated from it. Malware can protrude spikes and pillars from the ground, and can alter his size to the point where he was multiple times bigger than Waybig. Malware, like other mechamorphs, has optic lasers and doesn't have to worry about breathing, meaning he can survive in space or underwater without difficulty. And yep, all these abilities are listed for malware. Vilgax has two. And I knew Vilgax was one of the most powerful versions of Vilgax before writing the script of this video, but I didn't realise he was this powerful. The amount of things that Vilgax can do already, and I haven't even talked about Vilgax's exclusive abilities. I've only talked about... I'm not even mentioned feats or anything, it's just all the abilities that malware has. And yeah, I didn't realise malware alone was as powerful either, though again I knew he was super powerful. As for Vilgax, we saw that he was able to protrude sword out of his wrists. I assume that he absorbed his sword that he wields to do this, but we don't know. The issue also is that Vilgax's sword doesn't look the same as the swords that Vilgax wields, but it's not that big of a deal. On to Vilgax's feats. Wow, feats. So glad to have them. Unlike the past part of this Composite Vilgax series where there were none, well, practically none, for 3 versions of Vilgax. The feats I have on Vilgax here are more feats than all 3 versions of Vilgax in the previous video combined, which is it's kind of sad. But anyways, in the first minute or so that we see Vilgax for, he's fighting against Diamond Head and clashing blades with him. Vilgax was able to cut off Diamond Head's upper arms like they were nothing, and then was able to punch Diamond Head into Galvan's moon. Vilgax in Alien Force, for comparison, with all of his stolen powers, lost to Diamond Head, and that version of Vilgax was able to one-shot a fully grown Humongosaur. Now, Vilgax was easily able to defeat Diamond Head. We already knew that Vilgax was stronger than Alien Force Vilgax, but that's just puts into perspective. Back on to what I said before with Vilgax hitting Diamond Head into Galvan B, Galvan's moon. To take into consideration, our moon is 384,000 kilometers away from Earth. That's 3 days for a spacecraft to reach, and a spacecraft to travel at 8 kilometers per second. Do I think that Galvan B is the same distance from Galvan Prime as our moon is to Earth? No. But we don't know the distance between Galvan B and Galvan Prime. We can't really say the distance between the two, so that's just the distance between our Earth and the moon. It could be a similar distance, it could not be. Also taking into consideration that for us as the viewer, it took Diamond Head just a couple seconds to go from Galvan Prime to Galvan B. Not only is this super impressive, but Vilgax was able to fly from Galvan Prime to Galvan B and land on Galvan B just a couple seconds after Ben crash landed there, meaning Vilgax's travel speed is also crazy fast. Implying that Vilgax's travel speed is way faster than a spacecraft, assuming that Galvan B is the same distance from Galvan Prime as our moon is to Earth. After this, Ben turns into Atomics, which is one of Ben's most powerful aliens. The same Atomics that was able to one-shot both Ultimate Humongosaur and Ultimate Spider Monkey. Ultimate Spider Monkey being stronger than Forearms, and Ultimate Humongosaur being stronger than Humongosaur, of course. And this same Atomics didn't leave a scratch on Vilgax with regular attacks. Granted, Ben didn't use any nuclear energy into his attacks like he did with Ultimate Humongosaur, so his attacks weren't as powerful. But we saw Atomics fire off a nuclear attack at Vilgax like he did with Ultimate Spider Monkey anyways, yet they didn't really do anything to him besides push Vilgax back a few feet. Despite Vilgax being this overpowered, he still lost. He lost by being pushed into the core of his ship. Unfortunately, we don't know how powerful the core of Vilgax's ship is, we just know it's more powerful than any of Atomics' attacks, considering it was able to defeat Vilgax. That's all for this part of the Composite Vilgax series, and I learned quite a bit in making this video. Not only with Vilgax's pets, and me coming up with the headcanon that Dagon is the ancestor to the Chimera, and all that, but also like everything malware and Vilgax is capable of. That's all for this part, and hopefully you check into the 5th part of the series. Bye.